Israel in 1948, it was Palestine.
No, it actually wasn't. In fact, there has never been a nation in that area of the world known as Palestine.
Yeah, he didn't say it was the nation state of Palestine. He said it was Palestine. And it was, and the British Empire and Ottoman Empire agreed and called it Palestine.
First map you see, which is labeled as 1947. The first lie it shows you on this map is it calls it Palestine. It wasn't called that.
Even the guy who birthed the idea of Israel called it Palestine. I would have thought above all things that this boomer, older millennial, would have spent enough time on this earth to understand that there are different ways to settle a piece of land, and not all of them conform to the Western idea of a nation state. The concept of countries themselves, like we know of them today, didn't even formalize until the 18th century. Furthermore, a territory or region full of people that did not formalize themselves into the concept of a nation state or country is not justification that they should be violently colonized. But as all good and faithful empire apologists do, they justify imperialism using imperial laws and imperial logic. Before 1948, the British Empire referred to Palestine as Palestine. Its legal formal name was the British Mandate of Palestine, but it was still Palestine. Whether it was during the Ottoman Empire or the British Empire, it was the same people settling the land.
It was an area of land that they ruled, and it was known as the British Empire. And the first time it was ever divided up and tried to make into a nation, that was Israel.
You tell them, older millennial, our beloved white European settlers who came to violently colonize the Third World were the first to formalize the region into a conception of national identity that they conjured up in the first place. If you watch this guy's entire argument, it all hinges on the dubious logic that because Palestine has never been considered, in the eyes of the empire, a formalized nation state, then for the Palestinians that settled the land, human rights don't matter, and they deserve what they ultimately got, to be ethnically cleansed from their own homes and land. In other words, because the region known as Palestine was considered a satellite of a much greater empire, its people were subjects, not entitled to the right to self-determine, not entitled to human rights. They could be dealt with accordingly at the whims and the mercy of empire. So if the British decided, like they did in 1917 with the famous Balfour Declaration, that they were going to, quote, establish a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then they were free to do so. Who's to tell them that they can't? Legally, they could. The British owned that land. The people that lived on that land were not consulted about what was going to happen to them, that they were going to be dispossessed of their land and their resources. If Palestinians, the people that settled the land that was formerly known as Palestine, did not accept the newfound arrangement and they resorted to violence, then people could say things like this.
The Arabs revolted against the British and tried to murder all these Jews.
And use it as a pretext for more violence. The British Empire could just crush them, and then they'd be villainized by people like this who only give one side of the story and say things like this.
No, there's a specific reason for each and every one of these fucking changes. And surprise, surprise, every fucking time is the Palestinians' fault.
Imagine trying to revise history so that you could say that the people that were being colonized were the aggressors against the people that were colonizing them. What's outside of this guy's capacity to understand is that he's using imperial logic to justify imperialism. So yes, in the imperial system of empire, with its laws, rules, values, principles, logic, all designed to serve the interests of power, legally, Palestine was not a nation state. But whether Palestine is considered a Western-oriented nation state or an informal territory of people is of no consequence. The same people were living on that land, despite what you call it. You can call it Zimbabwe or Djibouti, whatever. The same people were living on that land, and they didn't deserve to have their land violently dispossessed by colonial settlers of a larger empire that treated them like subjects. The fact is, the people that settled in the region of the world known as Palestine did not deserve to be ethnically cleansed. This is not a complex issue, it is about human rights. No one in their right mind today would try to justify American slavery by saying that it was legal in the 1800s. I would not be shocked to learn that this person justifies the ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Native Americans on the grounds that they were a collection of tribes living in a loose formation of territories. And anyway, it was all legal because in 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act. And the fact that there was a Cherokee nation which considered itself its own sovereign government, well, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what the United States government thinks. And to the United States government, the Cherokee nation is not a real nation, so we can dispense with that silliness and huddle them into a concentration camp in Oklahoma. People who lack spines and elementary basic morality make these kinds of middle school arguments. You've heard them before. Might makes right. They got what was coming. If slaves didn't deserve to be persecuted, then why were they slaves? If the Native Americans didn't deserve to be genocided, then why didn't they industrialize? If Palestinians didn't deserve to have their land violently ripped from them, then why did they not overcome their position as third-rate citizens stuck in the crosshairs of an empire? If Filipinos were supposed to have their own national identity, then why were they owned by the Spanish and then the Americans? Clearly they were meant to be in that position. Clearly the Americans had every right to colonize that land. They got that land from the Spanish. And what about Hawaii or Alaska or Guam or Puerto Rico? Clearly those weren't their own countries or nation states, so America has every right to colonize those places, right? The Hawaiians and the Alaskans and the Puerto Ricans and the Guamanians and the Filipinos, they all got what they deserved. They all got what was coming to them.
The worst time to get a good deal is when you're losing a war. And at this point, it can't be said that Hamas is winning this thing for Palestinians. And if you go back to the 1947 partition plan, it was a 50-50 divide of the land, which at this point would be a fantastic deal, I believe, for Palestinians. They rejected it.
Can you believe those ungrateful Palestinians did not accept being colonized? The audacity. In 1947, the UN General Assembly approved a resolution partitioning the British Mandate of Palestine into a Jewish state which incorporated 56% of Palestine, with an Arab state retaining 44%.
It was a 50-50 divide of the land.
It was not 50-50.
They rejected it.
Were the Palestinians asked about this? Did they have a say in what was going to happen to their land? No. This predictably started a war between the newly founded state of Israel and the surrounding Arab states. In the 1948 war, 250,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes and they fled to the Gaza Strip. Today, more than 70% of Gazans are refugees from that 1948 war and their descendants. This is the good deal.
Fantastic deal.
This person is talking about.
They rejected it.
Does everybody read between the lines of what this person is trying to say? When an Israeli airstrike destroys a hospital, killing 500 innocent civilians as it did today, it's the Palestinians' fault. They should have accepted the terms of the agreement in 1948 and they wouldn't be in this mess.
The worst time to get a good deal is when you're losing a war.
Calling this a war is egregiously irresponsible. I cannot stress that enough. This is not a war. This is a genocide.
Would be a fantastic deal, I believe.
It would be like saying if the United States decided to annex the territory of Kansas and Nebraska for white European settlers, forcing the Native Americans out of that land and concentrating them into a camp in Oklahoma. Oh wait, that already did happen. But you know, if the Native Americans were granted one state in the United States of America,
at this point would be a fantastic deal.
That would be a fantastic deal today. Would anyone in their right mind today defend the American policy of apartheid towards the Native Americans, defend the ethnic cleansing, defend the genocide of the Native Americans today? No. Would anyone in their right mind victim shame the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Sioux, the Chippewa, etc., for fighting back against colonialism? I don't think so. And yet, in essence, this is what this person is doing right now. This is just more liberal apologia in the service of power, in the service of empire. This take is not going to age well for this person.
This is absolutely unbelievable. Ben Shapiro, that little pint-sized twerp, fast-talking Adderall fuel from the Daily Wire, just penned an article in which he said he didn't care when civilians get killed in the West Bank by Israeli troops. And he further said that the life of a serviceman, American or Israeli, is worth more than any dead civilian. That is absolutely vile and disgusting. And I can't even believe someone would say something like that, much less put it in writing. So you can find the article, which I actually took a copy of it and put it in my Twitter feed. My Twitter feed is @ChipBarnes, and it's in my timeline recently. So I don't know what the hell to say about people like that. I don't know if you can change the way they think, but that's what we're up against.
Israel and the United States have already lost this war. And let me tell you what I mean. And I'm just going to be brutally honest with you, all right? I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. Before this situation happened, my opinion of the Israel versus Palestine issue is that Israel was the good guys and everybody was trying to kill them. And they were surrounded by a bunch of Arab terrorists in all these different countries. And the people in Gaza and the West Bank were mostly terrorists, Muslim terrorists who just wanted to kill all the Jewish people. or they were protecting terrorists, one or the other. Okay, that was my knowledge. That has what has been fed to me in the United States of America for the 54 years of my life. Now, I have educated myself on the situation. I know about the Nakba and Tantura. I know about the Israeli PR firm of Hasbara. I mean, I've now started to educate myself on this stuff. I've said to myself, well, why is all this happening? And so I learned about the 1953 CIA coup toppling the government of Iran, and then how that sparked the Iranian Revolution in 1979, which basically that it was the foundation of terror as we know it in the Middle East, right? We've learned about all of these things, okay? And we've learned that the United States funds 16% of Israel's military budget. Israel, with their free health care for all, we give them billions and billions of dollars for bombs. We have learned so much in this conflict because the information is here in places like TikTok. And I hate to say this, but it's true. The only thing that is going to change this conflict is the horror of Western people like me right now that are seeing this and saying, holy fuck. But you have to understand something. We're just getting to this spot right now. And what we're seeing is that the Palestinian people have been undergoing this for 75 years. This is no different than anything else that they've gone through for 75 years. Entire generations. Okay? What's different about it this time? Westerners are finally speaking up. And unfortunately, that's the only thing the Palestinians can do to get their message out to the world, because the Zionist Israelis have they have a hold on the information networks and always have. That has now disappeared. And they're still trying desperately to frame the narrative on social media, but now people are seeing through it. Now we have things like TikTok where we can screenshot Israel's statements that they put out where they claim that they did bomb the hospital, and then we can see them delete them, and then we can see them come up with a new one that's this is a video, and then we can prove that the video is fake, and then we can follow everything that's happening. All we got to do is open our eyes and start looking, okay? And so this is what's going to happen. Israel's money is going to dry up from the United States. Right now, there's one thing that unites Democrat and Republican politicians and media in the United States, and that is the support for Israel. That's what it is. Unfucking believable that there's nothing else that Republicans and Democrats are aligned on. America is in bed with the Zionist Jewish lobby. And we see that now, and we are going to dry that motherfucking funding up, let me tell you. It may seem like, we've been trying to do this for years and years and years and years, but it just never works. Yeah, it's going to work now because white people like myself are finally fucking telling the story of the Palestinian people. That's what's going to fucking happen. And it's gross. It's disgusting that that's what it takes. But it's here. And we are going to fucking hold them accountable. Like, I'm telling you right now, I've made a solemn fucking promise to myself and here vocally on TikTok. I will never vote for another politician under any circumstances who supports the funding of Israel. Period. And I'm just one guy with a small platform. But let me tell you, there's more of me and more of me and more of me. And I'm going to keep educating people, and they're going to keep educating people. And we're all going to just fucking say, we will no longer vote for anybody who funds Israel. And I'm telling you, when that fucking happens, the state of Israel that you know of today will cease to exist. It will either adapt and make peace, or it will be destroyed because they won't have any fucking money anymore. Because the only reason Israel is alive today is because of America's money. Period. That's the reality of the situation. And so how do I see this ending? Not only with a marked change in what Israel is right now, but the freedom of the Palestinian people. And then I see this influencing many, many, many other revolutions across the world, just like the American Revolution did, right? That's what's going to happen. People are waking up, and I can't wait for it.